Hi, I'm Dennis Gage, and welcome to a special Legendary Mopar's home video edition of My Classic Car. You know, over the years, I've had the great pleasure of traveling the country to cover many of the most awesome Mopars to ever hit the streets. During the next hour or so, you'll see the original segments that aired on My Classic Car and hear my observations as we take a look back. On this video, there are legends like the 426 Hemi, Charger Daytona, Cudas, Challengers, and much more. So sit back and enjoy all the Mopar muscle. Chrysler built some of the greatest cars of the muscle car era, and the Cuda is one of my all-time favorites. Here's our feature on one of these legendary cars. Well, today I'm in Lakeland, Florida at the home of Dobbs Publishing at one of their tech centers, here with Chuck West. Chuck, welcome to the show.
Pleasure.
And one of Chuck's cars, a true muscle car legend, a 70 Cuda. And not just a 70 Cuda, but a 440 Cuda. And not just a 440 Cuda, but a 6-barrel. Is that right?
That's 100% right.
That's one bad boy.
Bad boy.
Bad boy. It's a pretty original car. Is that right?
All but the paint and the tires.
But it's the right color.
Correct.
Which is?
Lemon twist yellow.
And you've got about how many miles on it?
A little over 44,000.
And you drive it?
About 300 or 400 miles a weekend.
I respect that. Kind of an interesting set of options you've got in there, and I like the color-coordinated fire extinguisher.
I've got to be prepared for anything, Dennis.
Absolutely. So what all has it got?
Well, it's got the rim blow steering wheel, the rally gauges, and you'll notice a column shift and no slapstick console on the floor, and a 410 Dana.
Built to run.
Nothing but run.
But let's go to the show.
That's where we need to be, Dennis.
And this is the show, isn't it? That shaker hood.
Yes, sir. That's the shaker hood scoop.
Put on quite a song and dance for everybody to see. What was the real purpose of that?
Strictly intimidation on the street.
Well, and it was intimidating, seeing that thing rumble away. Well, let's lift her up and look at it.
Let's open her up.
Big black monster. Now, you got headers on there, I see, but otherwise it's pretty stock?
Yes, sir. Except for the plug wires and electronic ignition, it's pretty much stock.
Well, this is a view most people are used to seeing when you lift the hood on a shaker car. But let's pull that shaker scoop off and look at those 6 barrels.
Only take a second.
Got it.
Thank you.
All right. So that's 3 2-barrel Hollies, is that right?
Yes, sir, that's correct. She rides around on the middle 2-barrel when you're cruising, and then when you're wanting to have some fun, you step into it and all 3 2-barrels open up. And
the gas gauge goes down.
Yes, it does, Dennis.
I just noticed that your shaker insignia there. Is that me, or is this thing shaking already?
Probably a little bit of both of you.
Well, now the 426 Hemi always got all the glory. Was rated at 425 horse. What's this rated at?
This is 390 horsepower, but the same torque rating of 490 foot-pounds, Dennis.
And these 2 cars, actually this car could give a Hemi a run for the money on the street.
It really would. It would run heads up with it on the street.
Well, and speaking of running heads up on the street, you do drive this. Let's take this out and run it around a little bit.
Let's go play, Dennis.
Well, let's put it back together. Really is an intimidating looking car though, the way the back quarters are hunched up there and the roof's kind of pinched down and a big long hood.
It's definitely what they call in the league of the pony cars.
Oh yeah.
And of course I'm a little bit partial. I love all muscle cars, but I think between this and the Hemi Cuda, it's the ultimate.
This one really is put together in kind of an interesting way from an option standpoint.
It's thought to be a factory executive order car because it's kind of an oddball combination with the rally gauge package, the rim blow horn, the shaker, the Dana 60, but yet no console like most of them came with a Hemi Torque Flight, because 9 times out of 10 they were always on the floor with a slapstick.
Right.
But this one was ordered for whatever reason with the column.
Real fine. Well, Chuck, we're on a lonely private road. What do you say we light them up?
Let's do it.
Melt some asphalt. The Dodge Charger Daytona is another one of my favorite muscle cars, so it comes as no surprise that we featured one on an early episode of My Classic Car. Joining me now is Dave Jones. Dave, welcome. Proud owner of one of these winged muscle cars, Charger Daytona. Dave, this is a beautiful baby. There weren't many of these made, right?
No, there were only 503 of these produced.
And this one's particularly unique because of its engine, but we'll get to that. These cars were based on the Charger RT.
Right, the 1969 Dodge Charger RT.
But they had some stunning differences, and probably the most obvious one is this high wing and back.
Rear stabilizer bar. This stabilizer has an adjustment on it with a Allen wrench. You can adjust the height up and down according to how much air you want flowing across it.
And the whole thing is aluminum.
The whole thing's aluminum. This is painted black with a decal that wraps all the way around the back end of the car.
Now I also understand that's not just sitting there. This thing is braced all the way down, isn't it?
Right. This is braced all the way down through the trunk floor, all the way into the frame rails through supports inside here.
So in essence, you can pick this car up
Right.
by the wing.
Right. You can actually pick the back end of this car up by the wing.
Okay, well some of the other things that are different from the standard Charger RTs would be the back window.
Right. This back window has a cap put over it. The original back glass was tunneled inside, let bad air get in, and what they wanted was smooth, clean air to come across this into the stabilizer. And so Chrysler put a cap right over the back end of this.
Didn't want any of that bad air.
Right. They
No
want
bad air.
Clean air in there.
Clean air. Now, from an interior standpoint, though, she's pretty much a stock Charger.
Right. The car is a 69 Charger. This was a low-option car, no power steering, no power brakes, doesn't even have a remote-controlled mirror, nor does it even have a tach.
But it does have, you got an automatic, the Torque Flight in there.
Right. Automatic with a console.
Also, Dave, these stainless pillars aren't something I remember on Charger RTs.
No, this was only on Dodge Daytonas and also on the Superbirds, the sister car. And what they did is they wanted clean air coming around the car, so they put these stainless steel pillars on there just like that they were on the race cars.
No bad air.
No bad air.
No bad air. Another thing, trademark of these cars were these inverted scoops on the hoods. A lot of lore, a lot of speculation, mystique about what those were.
Right. Those were strictly built for tar clearance. What that did was let the tar come up into the fender. They were having problems with going into the corners with blowing tars. The tars would come up and hit the top of the fenders. Chrysler said, okay, what we'll do, we'll cut a hole in there and hide it with a scoop. Now, one other advantage they got out of that was to cool the brakes. It also helped to cool the brakes, but that was the only reason those scoops
But that
were
was
ever put on.
secondary. That was just icing on the cake.
That's right.
Well, and that was another good point, because this really was the car that raced, too.
This was actually your race car, not like NASCAR does today. This was your car. You would buy this car and gut the interior and do your engine work and go racing. This was the race car right here.
Well, how about the front end? The fenders and the hood are really just 70 Chargers.
Right. This is a 69 automobile with 70 Charger hood and 70 Charger front fenders cut down here to accommodate for the nose.
Now, how about the tires? Is that the standard tire that came out, Redline?
Right. The car came with F70 15 Goodyear Redlines. These are remakes of the originals, which is made. I bought these off of John Kelsey in Missouri. But these are a lot better than the original tires because this has a lot softer compound than the original tires came.
Sticks a little better.
Right, sticks a lot better.
Well, of course, the other thing, you know, tail to tip, the front end of the Daytona was certainly distinctive.
Right. A lot of people thought this nose was made out of fiberglass, but it's actually metal. It's metal just like the car. The headlight buckets are made out of fiberglass, but the nose itself is metal.
Well, what powers this is a 426 Hemi. It's actually, again, as you say, fairly rare that these came with that, about 30 or so of them.
Right.
Let's have a look.
The actual production numbers on this is, right now we have in the high 30s known that are true Hemi Daytonas. We'll probably find a few more, somewhere in the low 40s.
Well, that is a monster of an engine. 426 Hemi rated at what horsepower?
This is 425 horsepower, 2 4-barrels, and like I say, this car has no power steering, no power brakes, nothing to slow it down, just raw power.
And that 425 horse was a conservative, insurance-driven rating, wasn't it?
Right. The horsepower on this is far higher than 425, but they was having enough problems with insurance, even with a 383, let alone with a Hemi.
So it was built to go.
It really was.
And speaking of that, we've arranged for a couple hours at Indianapolis Raceway Park Oval. I say we take it out and run it the way it was meant to be run.
That sounds like fun.
Let's do it.
All right. Shown well. It's been a fun car. It really has. Like I say, the motor's never been a part in this car. It's still the original block, and we're just getting ready to turn over 61,000 miles.
I love that sound. That's that distinctive sound of the Hemi, but you've also got, this has got some resonators also, doesn't it?
Right. It has the original resonators under it, but the car is basically stock. That's how they sound back then, you know.
And the owners of wing cars, the 69 Daytonas and the 70 Superbirds, are pretty much one family.
Right. There's two main car clubs for the wing cars. One's in Iowa and the other one is in Wisconsin. They're strictly for the wing cars, but a lot of us wing car owners belong to a lot of different Chrysler clubs where if you have just a Roadrunner or Charger or whatever, it doesn't make no difference. We're all in this, you know, in the same club.
What a blast. Dave, I love this car. I love Hemis and anything, but this is great. Thanks so much for joining us.
It's been fun.
The 426 Hemi gets a lot of attention, but the 440 was no slouch. In fact, bolted into this Dodge Challenger, it shredded more than its share of rear tires, as I found out during this trip to Pennsylvania. We're at historic Allenbury Resort Inn right near Carlisle, Pennsylvania with Kent Olson. Kent, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Dennis.
And this wild, vibrant 70 Challenger RT. This thing really pops, man.
It really does, and what's popping out at you is that high-impact paint called Sublime.
High impact indeed. Now this was these cartoon colors that Mopar used in the early 70s. There was Sublime, there was
Curious Yellow, a bunch of them.
Plum Crazy, or
Yep.
Yeah, great. Now this is a beautiful car. I've always been a fan of the Challenger, and what I really like, and the RT even sets it off more, is this character line with its stripe that comes down the body, kicks up here and back, and Mopars always look so muscly.
Oh,
you know?
yeah, the byline really accents the car, and then you get the stripe on there. You can really see where the byline is. It makes it look like a nice streamlined car.
It does. Now, I love the luggage rack too, and I don't know if I've ever seen one before.
They're kind of rare. You don't see them on a lot of cars, and it's
Factory?
funny. It's a factory option that this car came with, and it's something like less than 6% of the cars got this option on their car.
Yeah, I think it adds a lot of dress up to the back. It's a great looking rack. Now
Yeah.
this came with the Space Saver spare, right?
Right, this car came with a Space Saver spare.
Those things crack me up.
Yeah.
Yeah, look at that. Well, it was a small trunk. Mm-hmm. So to give you more room, that's what they did.
Right, and they had an inflation canister on there, so if you had a flat tire, you could pull the spare out, pop the canister on, and pop up the tire, and poof, away you go.
Yeah, it's more of that cartoon stuff. It's like the you
Sure.
know, dehydrated, just add water.
That's right.
Well, I also love your license plate. That's pretty cool. Where'd you get that?
That's an original issue plate like you would get from your DMV when you go to register your car.
Yeah?
And that's an original plate, never issued. I found that at a swap meet, and I had to buy it the minute I saw it.
You're kidding.
Yep.
That's wonderful. And what is it? One Lime Mopar 440
Or one Lime 440, or one Lean Mean 440. Yeah.
So many meanings.
Right.
Well, now the rectangular exhaust tips were RT, right?
There was an option on the RT and the dual exhaust and the bright chrome tips.
Man, and that really sets it off, and again makes it look different and again pretty tough.
Yep.
Now you've restored the entire car, right?
The car was all restored. It was a total rotisserie job. Every Every nut and bolt was taken off this car.
Oh man, well the interior is beautiful. In the RT you got some extra options, some other special stuff, didn't you?
Yeah, mainly you got, all the RTs came standard with the rally dash. And you had the 4 pods on the dash that had the tach, the speedometer, clock, and then you had the various fuel and temperature gauges in another one.
Now it had the collapsible steering wheel too, right?
Yep, this came with the collapsible steering wheel. It was a safety option that they came out with, and the car actually, if you had it in a front end collision, the steering column collapsed and protected it from going back into the driver.
And the other thing that's just so Mopar is the pistol grip 4-speed. Oh yes.
That's right. all the 4-speed cars came with the pistol grip Hurst 4-speed.
Right from the factory.
Right from the factory,
Man.
yes.
Now this car came standard with a 383.
The RTs came standard. You got the 383 Magnum.
But the upgrade to that was the 440 Magnum.
Yep.
Which is a 4-barrel car.
Yep. 440 Magnum was a 4-barrel car upgrade, and then the next motor up would be the 446 pack.
Three deuces.
Right. And then on top of that, you've got, well,
of course, the 426 Hemi. Yes.
Yes.
But this engine's not too shabby either.
No.
It can
hold
not
its own.
Well, let's open it up.
Okay.
Oh man, that's beautiful. It's as pretty inside as it is outside.
Oh yeah, it really jumps out at you with all the colors in there.
And that engine bay would have been the way they did it. It wasn't the chassis black, it was the color of the car, right?
That's just the way Mopar did them. They painted their engine bays the same color as the body on the car.
And man, against that orange engine, that engine is gorgeous. It actually looks powder coated.
Yeah, it looks like it's still wet paint on there. John Balo at Muscle Car Restorations did all the paint and body work on this car, and
it's gorgeous. He does
yes.
great work. Now this is you built it pretty stock, right?
It's meant to look stock, but perform a little bit better. And I didn't want a motor that I was going to have problems with driving on the street, so I built it pretty much stock. It idles nice, and it doesn't overheat.
Wow.
And it does real good on the road.
Now what would that be pushing for horsepower? The stock 440 Magnum.
About 375.
Well, like I say, that's respectable.
You
Very
bet.
respectable.
Yes.
Well, so it's a lovely day.
It sure is.
It is. What do you say?
Hit the road?
Yeah,
All
hit
right.
the road. I'll take this pin.
Okay.
Ooh, good sound. We're locked and loaded.
We're ready to go.
Sublime. This just cracks me up. Oh, the fit's great too.
Yeah, it's really a comfortable car.
Fired up.
Okay.
So you've always been a Mopar guy?
Pretty much always a Mopar guy, and I think my dad was the one that got me into it. He always told me, they brought me home from the hospital in an old Mopar, and
Well, right from the beginning, eh?
yeah, so the body lines and the looks of most of the Mopars just really appealed to me, I guess.
Well, they were very distinctive. I mean, and especially in the muscle car era, there weren't many cars that looked musclier. Now, how long have you had this car?
I've had this car for about 6 years now. When I first got it, it was a running, driving car, pretty rough. I drove it for about a year before I started to disassemble and get it ready to restore.
So it was about a 5-year restoration or so?
About 5 years. It's been off the road, so it's a long wait for me, and now that it's finally done, I'm really enjoying it.
Oh, yeah. Ah, yes. Oh, yes, that was fun. Very nice, Kent. Very nice.
enjoy that.
A sublime experience indeed.
Yes.
It is beautiful. You know, this is now added to the list of cars I've got to own.
Well, you have to find one other than this one to buy.
Oh, come on. Well, what do you think? You know, maybe you can make a deal on this. I love the color.
Let's talk. We'll talk.
In 1968, Chrysler Corporation went to the drag races with an ultralight Dart powered by a huge 426 Hemi engine. Although Chrysler designed the Hemi Dart, the cars were actually assembled by the Hearst Company. Extreme weight-saving measures were taken to lighten the cars as much as possible, such as acid-dip body panels, thin stamped steel metal bumpers, fiberglass fenders and hood, and polymer windows. Well, we got a gorgeous day in St. Charles, Illinois, and I'm here with my good buddy John Balo. John, great to see you again.
Good to see you, Dennis.
And another one of his killer restorations, the 68 factory lightweight Hemi Dart.
Absolutely, Dennis. My good friend Pete Matuzik loaned it to us for the day.
Well, now this also, I mean, this is the real deal. This is no clone, right?
This is an LO23 car from stem to stern, the real deal.
How many of these did they build?
They built 80 of these, Dennis. Chrysler actually shipped bodies in white directly to Hearst, and they assembled these drag race cars at the Hearst factory in Detroit.
Well, now, the whole thing about lightweights was pulling weight out and moving it around.
Exactly. Drag racing is all about weight and balance, and one of the things that they did with this particular model is to move a lot of weight from the front to the back.
Well, they moved a lot of battery, too, there.
They moved a lot of battery, and they put a very heavy plate underneath it, and it really helped the performance and traction in particular.
Well, now, in pulling weight out of the car, then would this back window have been a lightweight?
No, actually, they wanted to keep that factory and, again, keep the weight in the back of the car.
So who built these? These were Hearst built, weren't they?
These were Hearst-built cars, and Hearst actually was commissioned to cut the wheelhouses for larger tires. They installed lightweight Corning glass in all four positions.
So this isn't Lexan, it's actually...
No, this is Corning glass, 90 thousandths thick.
Well, what else did they do? I see no back seat.
Back seat was eliminated. A lightweight roll bar was installed in the car.
I'm assuming that's, what, a torque flight?
Torque flight transmission in this model with the Hearst dual gate floor shifter.
Lovely seats.
A100 van bucket seats, lightweight with lightweight aluminum seat brackets.
Now these things actually came with a disclaimer, didn't they?
Exactly, Dennis. Right here in the glove box was the not for street use.
Right, and these
disclaimer.
Never went on the street, did they?
Oh, not
hardly. Never, no. But I mean, they were meant to go right onto the strip, and most of the time racers were the ones that bought them, right?
Exactly. They went directly to the drag racers. In addition to the lightweight seats and other components, we have thin stamped steel doors and no window regulators in this model. We raised the windows with this seat belt.
And what kind of gain do you get in pulling weight out of a car?
Well, for the rule of thumb is for every 100 pounds you take out of the car, it'll go a tenth of a second quicker.
And that's still true today, pretty much?
Still true today.
Wow. So they went with, what, fiberglass fenders?
Fiberglass front fenders, fiberglass hood. Mm-hmm. They even went so far as to do a thin stamped steel front bumper.
Wow, that's no 5-mile-an-hour bumper, is it?
No, it sure isn't, Dennis.
Well, let's have a look at this monster.
Let's take a look at this big elephant motor.
Oh, very light hood, isn't it?
That's the idea.
I guess that is the point. Yeah, how did they ever get that thing shoehorned in
Well, they
there?
had to do a lot of work, Dennis, to get this motor to fit inside the car. On the right side, the master cylinder is a good example of how they had to build a special relocation block to move it outboard. So that the Hemi motor would actually fit in there with the valve covers. And in order for the racers to tune these motors and to remove the valve cover, they had to install those rubber hoses to allow the master cylinder to be laid up on the inner fender panel.
Looks like the same ones you'd find down by the brake.
Exactly. In fact, it's the same part number.
No kidding. Well, I'm sure it's a radio delete. Is it heater delete car
Radio
also?
delete, heater delete. They didn't want anything they didn't need in the cars for weight savings.
Boy. Well, it is, I mean, it's a street legal car. What do you say we take this baby out and, just cruise a little bit?
You don't have to ask me twice, Dennis.
Joy riding in a dragster. I like that.
Well, we can sure do that.
Well, let's pin it down because I don't think this would stay long otherwise.
Well, I don't feel like repainting this hood either.
A beautiful sunny day and a straight stretch of blacktop was the perfect setting to take this bad boy out for a spin.
Many magazine articles have been written about this car.
How many of these are surviving?
Well, that's really a hard number. I'm not sure anyone really knows how many are really around anymore. With these 488 gears, it ought to be a loud ride, Dennis.
No, obviously no power steering there either.
No power steering again, you know, that weight factor. We don't want to be putting anything on that we don't need to go in a straight line.
So how far back did you have to bring this?
This car was actually still in the Speedwind Motors colors with the lace paint. We chemically dipped the car body, went through a complete restoration, and Pete really wanted to restore it in this B5 blue color, personal preference, and it was a total 100% ground up restoration.
And was this the stock hood? That's what these came with?
Exactly, that is the stock hood. They left the factory with 2 vertical uprights on the scoop to hold the scoop down because they catch so much air. During the course of drag racing, most of the racers actually added 2 and 3 more supports because at really high, as these cars started to approach, you know, 120, 30 miles an hour, the scoop would rip right off the hood.
Okay.
Exactly, so they had to support it.
That's a heck of a sound, isn't it?
Only the Hemi does it.
John, this car is insane.
Dennis, it is the ultimate fun ride, isn't it?
I can't believe this is a factory-built machine. What a killer.
It's a lot of fun. Now I think it's your turn to drive it.
If you insist. I won't pass this one up. Oh, man. What a machine. I've always had a special soft spot in my heart for the so-called sleeper cars. So the place reserved for the '64 Plymouth Belvedere is downright squishy. In fact, many a hot rodder was rudely awakened by this wolf in sheep's clothing. Well, today we're at Allenberry Resort Inn, just outside Carlisle, Pennsylvania, with Steve Mosher. Steve,
nice to see you, Dennis.
Welcome to the show. And his absolutely bad to the bone '64 Belvedere 426 Hemi.
It's a bad to the bone car to me also.
Now, this is a replica of an actual factory drag car.
Right. They made a few factory drag car race Hemi in '64, and they also made very few steel nose cars.
Yeah. Now, because most of the drag cars were an aluminum front end and
right, lightweight front end, doors, lightweight glass. But very few, like I said, steel nose cars.
And this is actually a steel nose car, so the fact that it's a replica of that is even rarer.
Yes,
now,
it is.
It's an absolutely beautiful car, straight as an arrow.
Straight as an arrow. The body work is impeccable. John Balo from Muscle Car Restoration started with a beautiful rust-free body.
He does nice work.
He performed miracles on this car.
Well, so did you do it all? I mean, did you even put the battery in the trunk like the race?
Yep, the race Hemis came with batteries in the trunk.
And that was for, you know, kind of weight transfer advantages?
Weight transfers.
And is that a correct setup?
We went with a max wedge setup with the vent tubes and a little smaller battery, just out of personal preference.
So, but it is period correct,
no
right?
question about it.
Oh, yeah. Now this, the Belvedere was a higher trim level car.
It was one step up from the Savoy.
So you had the trunk chrome and...
Little stainless on the trunk, on the body side moldings and around the windows.
Uh-huh. Now the interior in this is beautiful, and it's nicer than I would expected a factory drag car to be.
Well, we modeled it after the steel nose cars with the bench seat.
Uh-huh.
The interior is correct. The gold piping is correct. It's correct, the interior.
Now the lightweights would have had, you know, more
bucket seats, a little more minimal trim on the inside.
Well, you've got the radio delete and I guess heater delete.
Heater
panel.
delete, radio delete.
And then the wonderful era of push-button transmission.
Push button. In order to go through the gears, you got to punch every gear individually.
Now they shifted it around from the standard push button.
This is a reverse manual valve body where you started from the first up top, worked your way down,
boom, boom,
and kept away from neutral and reverse as you went down the tree.
and that's wise, I think.
That's the best way to do it.
But now, of course, what makes this the monster that it is the 426 Hemi.
Race Hemi.
Yes.
Race Hemi.
Well, open
The
this baby up.
ultimate street machine.
It is. And I tell you, oh man, that is the biggest chunk of metal you'll ever see under a hood.
It fills up the engine compartment, the elephant motor.
The elephant motor indeed. Now, is this is that a vintage block and everything, or?
The block is a made-up block. It's a new Mopar performance block, 69 Hemi heads. The manifold is a correct period cross-ram manifold.
That was hard to find.
That certainly was.
Now those are Holley carbs. I thought they came out originally with Carter AFBs.
Right. The mid-year Race Hemi in '64 came out with AFBs, and the subsequent years, all the Race Hemis came with Holleys.
Wow.
Again, we did it for preference.
Now you drove this, or you built it to be streetable. Is it a still solid lifter?
No, we went with hydraulic
Uh-huh.
cams and a low compression, 9 1/4 to 1 compression.
Down from the 12 and a half.
Right,
original?
so we could use pump gas, and it could make it a little more streetable.
Wow, so off of pump gas and the hydraulic cams, lower compression, how much compromise in?
None. There's no compromise. He's putting out over 519 horsepower.
Dynoed at that?
Dynoed.
Man, what kind of torque?
Over 540 pounds of torque.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, you gotta love that. Absolutely. Must be a lot of fun.
It's a heck of a lot of fun. Draws a lot of attention.
I believe it does. Well, now you built it to be streetable, and you do drive it on streets. What do you say we take it for a spin?
Let's let it go.
Oh yes.
Hold on, Dennis.
Hold on to your hat. Yeah, I'm back in time.
Oh, here we go.
Fire it up. Oh yeah. I think I'll buckle my seatbelt.
You better buckle it, Dennis.
So, Steve, you always been a Mopar guy, or?
No, as a matter of fact, Dennis, I wasn't. Only the last 5 years did I find the light.
Caught the bug.
That's right. Before that, it was all Chevy.
Well, now these things also, they came with some sort of disclaimer too, right? You weren't even supposed to be running these things on the street, the original factory drag cars.
I have one of the original disclaimers in the glove box that basically informed you that there was no warranty with the car. No 12,000-mile warranty. Once you took possession of it, that was it. It was all over.
And it also pretty much stated that they're only supposed to be in controlled acceleration.
Yeah, that's right. That's the joke. Only under supervised controlled acceleration trials.
Well, I know from my youth that's the only time I ever saw them.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I was very, very reliable and very conscientious when I was young.
They said you could basically, take delivery of this, uncork the headers, put a set of drag tires on it, and turn it.
And you'd be in the winner's circle.
Yeah, and just drive it to the winner's circle.
No
basically.
question about it. The Pontiacs and the General Motors cars and the Chevys and Fords, they just might as well stay home and leave the cars on the trailer.
Well, that was fun. Oh, I tell you. Cruising the back roads of Pennsylvania in a 426 Hemi.
Nothing but speed.
It don't get much better than this.
Thanks a lot,
man.
Dennis.
Thank you. If you take it out again, I'll buy the gas.
You better buy the gas.
All right, let's do it.
The car hobby is as much about the people and their unique stories as it is about the cars. A good example of this is the couple I visited in Indiana who built his and hers Mopars that each reflect their personality. And believe me, the paint wasn't the only thing loud about these cars.
Well, today we're in McCutcheonville, Indiana with Larry Ernst. Larry, welcome to the show.
It's a pleasure, Dennis. Thanks for having us.
Oh man, it's great. And a pair of my favorite Mopars, the 1970 AAR CUDA and a 70 Challenger TA.
Exactly.
Wow, these are great cars. Now you built both of these, and they're both clones, right?
Yes, they are clones, Dennis.
So you're cloning around.
I'm cloning around. Somebody said I was quite a clone.
Well, now this is actually becoming pretty popular. A whole category of the hobby is cloning cars.
I think it is, Dennis, because there's only so many originals out there, and they are so sought after. If you have a clone, you tend to drive it, you use it a little bit more because the value is a little less. You can enjoy the car a little bit more.
Yeah, and that's really, that's what it's all about.
That's what it's all about.
And these are gorgeous cars, and you built both of these. It's also a his and hers deal. This,
Yes,
you and your wife Judy, right?
We work together on them.
But you did everything but what? The paint on these?
The bodywork and paint job was done by a friend of mine. He did an excellent job on both cars, but Judy and I disassembled, reassembled, and everything it took to put them together.
Whew. Well, let's talk about the AR CUDA itself. This was a 1 year only, built to homologate the car for Trans Am racing,
yes,
right?
SCCA Trans Am Series. You needed to make approximately 1,500 of them for sale to the public. They made approximately 2,476 of these cars, and then the CUDA, and that way you could enjoy the racing series as well.
Yeah. Well, now there's certain things also. The striping was AAR. The trumpet exhaust. That's what they came with, right?
They did come with that exhaust system, the chrome trumpet exhaust tips.
This is Limelight?
This is actually Limelight.
But it would be Sublime.
Sublime if it was
Challenger.
a Dodge Challenger or any Dodge product.
Well, now, under the hood, and that's the other thing that made these cars special, was one of my favorite setups, the 346 pack. But actually, it's not a 6-pack, is it?
No, it's not. In the Plymouth, they called it a 346 barrel.
That's right.
They use different terminology just to keep them separate.
And Mopar always, did the bay the same color as the car.
Yes, they had the high impact colors, especially this looked great when you open the hood, but they always paint the engine compartment same color as the body.
Well, but enough about CUDAs. Let's talk about Challengers. Now over here this is shocking pink almost, right?
That is beautiful. That's a Panther Pink Challenger TA clone.
And that was the color name. It was Panther Pink. Now if that had been over on the CUDA, it would have been?
Moulin Rouge.
Moulin Rouge.
Yes,
oh,
Dennis.
yes. Now this is one of the things that always amazed me about these two cars is, to an untrained observer from a distance, they look a lot alike, but I understand there's almost no body part that's interchangeable.
Nothing is interchangeable on them. You gotta go elsewhere to get everything.
That is just amazing. Now this car also, the white interior looks great on it, and I love the Panthers in back.
Those are my Judy's my wife, that's her babies there. She wanted the Panther Pink car with the white interior. They made some Panther Pink with white interiors, so she chose that. Now we got a unique looking Challenger TA clone.
Oh, you sure do. Now, all this stuff's pretty well available now aftermarket. All your decals and stuff. It's a good time to be cloning, isn't it?
Oh, yes, it is. The reproduction group out there, different places make almost everything you'd ever want. You don't have to look real hard for OEM stuff or original parts. You can get it as a reproduction item and you're ready to go.
Under the hood, we got the same thing here?
It is almost identical.
But it's a 6-pack.
Yes, sir. Now you're looking at a 346 pack.
Now both of these have functional scoops. I don't recall this plate in the originals.
Well, the reproduction air cleaners, they put the plate there as a deflector to keep debris from coming through your hood because it's an open hood air induction system. That way you keep debris out of your air cleaner.
Pigeons, sparrows, stuff
yes,
like that.
anything that might clog it up.
Well, you and Judy, you drive these things, you take them out all the time. Let's bring Judy in here. So Judy, now you did a lot of you made a lot of the calls over on this one, is that right?
Yes, I did. We worked both together on
Great.
it.
And you've got laryngitis today,
Yes,
don't you?
I do, unfortunately.
Well, it kind of sounds nice, actually.
Oh, thank you.
So you guys have a lot of fun, eh?
We have a blast. We turn a lot of heads when we go out together.
Well, nice day. Let's take them out together. What do you say?
Let's do it.
All right, I'm going to go out with you and I'll come back with you.
Sounds good, Dennis.
All right, let's button them up.
Thank you.
I'll pin this side for you.
Okay, I'll take this side.
I couldn't stand it any longer. We just had to get these beautiful beasts on the road. It was time to go cloning around. Sorry, I just couldn't resist saying that.
Now, you haven't finished this one all that long ago. It doesn't have many miles, does it?
No, it probably has close to 300 or a little bit better than that. But we just finished it up in August. And we took it to the Mopar Nationals, and we've been at the Auto Fest here in Evansville. We were both feature cars there, and we have just had a blast with it.
Now, Larry says his is actually faster. You wouldn't want to just punch it here for a second, would you, and pull away? We'll show him. Thank you very much. I gotta try this one out. All right, now in green.
All right.
Let's ride.
All right, let's go.
So this was the first one of the two that you did, Larry. How long did this one take you to do?
This one was approximately about 18 months, Dennis. It was fairly quick itself.
And, you know, it wasn't originally a Sublime car, or Limelight. Got to get it right. This is Limelight, right?
Limelight, yes.
Right. But you decided on Limelight?
Yes, I did. It's something I always wanted to have, so it was an opportunity to do it. It was a red car to begin with. It did have the black interior, but it was a red car. So I decided to make my dream come true.
I mean, for a first time out, you did a heck of a job.
You know, everybody that has seen this, and I guess I don't know how to say this without sounding conceited, but they've said, really? That's your first one? And so that makes me feel real good. But, you know, I tried to do it right, but it is a clone. So I did take liberties on a lot of things like we talked about earlier. I could do things my way. Mm-hmm. It didn't take as long to do because I did not look for original equipment or OEM, you know, parts. And so it was a little bit quicker, a little bit faster.
I mean, I don't know if you know this or not, but actually, Judy says hers is faster. You want to punch it and just pull away for a minute? Go ahead, punch it. Oh yeah, oh yeah. Oh yeah, we'll show her, right?
She knows better.
All right. What a blast.
This has been great.
Oh man. You know, I loved it. I can't decide which one I like better though.
It's been a great day.
It's been a fantastic day.
Well, you sure look pretty in pink, I tell
Thank
you.
you.
These are great cars. You guys,
Thank you,
know,
Dennis.
it's so wonderful. You got them both and you ride them both and everything. And I don't know, I just soon go out again. It's a beautiful day. What do you say?
Let's go, I'm game.
I'm ready to go.
I'm riding with her though. She's much better looking.
I can understand that.
Let's go.
Let's go.
When I think of great American V8 engines, the 426 Hemi is always near the top of my list. It set the performance world on its head when it was released in the early 60s, and today, it's a bona fide legend. Here's our documentary-style look at the awesome 426 Hemi.
It became obvious after the war, Second World War, that the market was exploding and it was going to be very competitive, and certainly the old line of long stroke L-head 6 and straight 6 and straight 8 engines that were Chrysler's forte simply weren't going to hack it.
The first production design became the Chrysler line Hemi head V8 engine, and that's the one that then was released for the 1951 model year.
There was not just the Chrysler original Hemi, but also a Dodge version, quite a bit smaller, and then an intermediate for the DeSoto.
Those engines all had the kind of power supremacy that Chrysler liked over the wedge head inline valve engines of other designs.
The Hemi head was an expensive engine to make, but on a mass-produced scale, not much more than the wedge. But management at Chrysler at the time felt that it was a bit too exotic, and they could make engines almost as powerful, some thought as powerful, as the Chrysler Hemi. So 1957 started seeing the window close on the Chrysler Hemi, and by 58, that was the last year of production for the Hemi engine at Chrysler for the first generation.
Well, Ramchargers was a group of drag racing enthusiasts that just naturally developed in Chrysler engineering.
And they actually worked like a research and development crew. They drag raced for the fun of it, but they actually took what they learned drag racing and brought it back to the corporation.
Major changes regarding the image of the product had to be made, and the decisions were made, and the finances were lined up to do it and so forth. We were at the ready. I mean, there was this group there that was a natural.
Chrysler was having good success in drag racing circles with its Max Wedge 413, Max Wedge 426. It was a great drag racing car, but on the circle tracks, the NASCAR circuit, the wedge engine did not do as well.
In April of '63, the decision was made, hey, let's do something significant here so that we can go be competitive in NASCAR. We knew what the A311 program could do. We knew what the Hemis had always done. Let's adapt a Hemi head to the basic big block wedge and go blow these guys away.
Well, the hemispherical chamber, as the name implies, is a portion of a sphere, and here you can see the arc shape of the sphere itself. With this, we can bring the spark plug in to the center of the chamber, which is an excellent position for the spark plug. The same shape over in this view allows us to put the valves in a position where when they open, like this inlet valve, it has excellent breathing of the air past the valve seat. And this combination of the excellent breathing of the inlet and the exhaust makes for a very high volumetric efficiency of the engine.
Daytona was very important because if in NASCAR, if someone had won Daytona, they had a successful year right there.
And the chairman of Chrysler said, all right, I want it in time for the Daytona 500 in February of '64. They had less than 12 months to produce an engine from a blank sheet of paper to a full-blown racing engine, and amazingly enough, they did it.
As it turned out, we were able to get all of our parts together for the buildup of the first engine, first prototype experimental engine, by the end of November of 1963, and the engine ran under its own power on December 6th of 1963.
Chrysler was under a real deadline to bring these engines down to Daytona and install them in cars, obviously prior to the race, but preferably several weeks before the race, so they could get their test time and develop time in for the race.
And we ran into problems with the engine on the durability side. By the end of January, we found that we were cracking cylinder bores. And when we found these cracks and realized what the solution would be to get additional castings, cylinder block castings with heavier bore walls, we were then about 3 weeks away from race day.
Workman was down at the foundry personally, tweaking everything to make it work, you know, and Bob Lechner's driving engines in the back of a pickup all night down to the beach, and all of us are, you know, it was really something.
That finish at Daytona couldn't have been better for the corporation. They let out a cheer at Chrysler Engineering when they swept 1, 2, 3 at Daytona.
It was just a wonderful feeling that all the work we had done had come to fruition in such a dramatic way.
The Hemi legend that began with the Chrysler 300 really took off with the Street Hemi in 1966 that was built upon the racing successes of the race Hemi from '64 to '65 and on.
We knew that we could not just put a race engine into production on the street. That just wouldn't work. But we were able to make a modified version of the engine that became our Street Hemi.
Well, Chrysler had to drop the Hemi in the early '70s for two primary reasons. One were the emission standards that were looming over the horizon, and further down the road, fuel economy standards. The 426 Hemi was a real gas guzzler. And by then there was another problem, that was insurance premiums. That was really socking it to them.
So there had to be almost a business decision whether or not to continue with that level of engineering work, or whether we should say, the Hemi has done its job, let's discontinue it now. We don't want it to ever get a flavor of being a mild-mannered engine. So in 1970, we said, let's stop production.
When we got the green light to go ahead and adapt the Hemi head to the big B engine, that we realized that it would be one day something revered that everybody would look back on as something very special indeed. Yeah, we knew that.
Every car company has its designing greats, and Chrysler is no exception. Here's our pocket documentary about one of those greats, Virgil Exner.
Virgil Exner was, in fact, one of the greatest contributors to the automobile industry. His drawings of automobiles were just smashing. So much so that he did the brochures for Studebaker in 1932 and 33. Harley Earl saw it, and Harley Earl hired him to work as a designer for General Motors, and he did the 37s and 38 Pontiacs, which were very, very nice cars. And it was about this time, you know, his career was about ready to go forth at General Motors, but he got such an offer from Raymond Loewy that he quit General Motors and worked for Loewy at Studebaker. But it wasn't until the post-war years that Virgil Exner's Studebakers started to be known to the public. In Detroit in 1946, they had the 50th anniversary of the automobile. Way at the end, I could see this little red car down there. It was the new Studebaker. It was beautiful. I was in awe. My dad was in awe. I, right there on the spot, talked him into getting one. Virgil Exner didn't stay very long at Studebaker either. There were some disagreements with Loewy, but really the important thing was that Chrysler was in trouble, like Studebaker was in trouble, but Chrysler was in more trouble.
Well, Chrysler Corporation was a company that was kind of constipated with the failure of the airflow. And after that, the Chrysler cars were contemporary but very, very conservative. It so happened that Virgil Exner was coming off his Studebaker experience, and so he was hired at Chrysler, but he wasn't to touch the production stuff. His first assignment was to do a show car, and his first show car was the Chrysler K310. He did a series of show cars after that. They were designed in Detroit. The bodies often were made by Ghia in Italy.
Ghia had a contract with Volkswagen to make a special little sporty coupe and sell it on a Volkswagen chassis. And they used the design of the D'Elegance show car that Exner used for the whole body theme of that Carmen Ghia.
First car line that Exner had responsibility for were the 1955 forward-look cars. And when the 55 Chrysler Corporation cars came out, they pulled at least even with the rest of the industry. They were very, very beautiful cars. Color played an important part in the design of the forward look. Three-tone color combinations. Each of the Chrysler cars that year, except Imperial, had color sweeps, accented by chrome moldings, but not in a gaudy fashion. But all of these cars were a mere prelude to what Exner accomplished in 1957.
I was working in Cadillac studio at the time, and we'd heard about these cars lined up outside the plant. And we drove down at lunchtime and looked at those cars. And we couldn't believe it. They were so low and so gorgeous. And the roofs were thin and graceful, and the cars had a beautiful taper to their fins and the shapes. The bumpers were integrated. They were gorgeous, gorgeous cars, and it shook the pants off us. He influenced everybody, and somehow now they look even better. And that's the mark of a really great designer.
Virgil Exner passed away in 1973, but his forward look continues to influence the design of today's cars. He will always be remembered as one of the master stylists.
Every once in a while, the people who sell cars become as famous as the cars they sell. Mr. Norm is one of those people. His Chicagoland dealership was the performance headquarters for Mopar fans during the height of the muscle car era.
Norm Krause, who is known as Mr. Norm by enthusiasts around the world, was not a designer or engineer in the traditional automotive sense. But he and his Grand Spalding Dodge dealership produced some of the most well-known performance cars of the muscle car era. In 1948, at the age of 16, he and his brother Len started selling used cars at their father's service station at the corner of Grand and Spalding in Chicago. Their big break came in 1956 when the boys ran a newspaper ad for a Chevy convertible with a V8 and stick shift. The reaction to the ad was overwhelming and showed them selling used performance cars was the wave of the future.
It was just one call after another. What do you have over there? Tell them what I had here. Tell them it was, it was fixed, it was repaired. Good running car. They came over. The car was sold immediately. And that same morning, while the people were calling, my brother happened to call in. I said, buy all the sticks, all the 4-speeds, anything in performance you can get your hands on.
The name Mr. Norm also grew out of the newspaper ad because the boys wanted to save money. So they came up with the name Mr. Norm's because it was short.
And we were selling them all day. We were advertising to Mr. Norm, and it started to grow, and the names started to get around throughout the city and the automobiles, all about if you want a performance car, go see Mr. Norm.
By 1962, they were so well known that Dodge approached the boys about getting into the new car business. They hesitated at first, but then signed on, and over the next 2 years built a showroom and service department. It was in that new service department that Norm was introduced to the world of drag racing by a customer.
He was there on a Saturday morning. I was standing in the back, and he came up to me. He says, "Norm, I'll put your name on my car if you give me a set of plugs and a set of seat covers." I said, "Where are you going with the name on your car?" He says, "To the drag strip." I said, "What's that?" He said, "The amphitheater. They got an 1/8 mile drag strip. 2 cars race against one another." I said, "Oh yeah, that sounds like a lot of fun." So I called over to Denny, who was our parts director at that time. I said, "Give him the parts he wants." And he put up a sign on the car, and they ran Sunday afternoon. By the time we closed Sunday and Monday, we sold 5 cars off those races.
In 1965, Mr. Norm teamed up with driver Gary Dyer, and together they took the drag racing world by storm. Back at the dealership, they were taking what they were learning at the strip and selling it to customers of new Dodge cars. This all-out performance image made Grand Spalding Dodge the largest Dodge dealer in the country. Their slogan was, "Kids are king."
You know, they would come in and say, "I wanted to drive it on the street, I wanted to drive it on the street and track, or I want to drive it on the track." You had three basic combinations. I didn't think in '67 that really Mopar did enough for our performance people, our customers, that there had to be, you know, something else. And I talked to Dodge about that at that time, and they just said you can't put a 383 in a Dart. We went back to the showroom, and we put a 383 in the Dart. And then we took that car to Detroit. And I remember what the head of Dodge said. We were at Hamtramck there, and he picked up a phone, and he said, "I want you engineers to come down here." So when they came down with their pipes in their hand with their caps on, and he said, "I want you to look at this car." He said, "These are the kids from Chicago." You know, because we were 2 young fellas at that time. We put the 383 in the Dart, and the Chrysler did it. And it's just amazing how many of the Mopar fans have those cars today and still talk about it. And then the next year we did with the 440, and then the Hemi, and then we went to the the 6-pack in '71, and then we went to the '72 Supercharger.
In 1973, government regulations put a stop to dealers performing mechanical modifications to new cars. Grand Spalding Dodge quickly switched to fleet sales and van conversions to make a living. The performance age was gone, and so were Mr. Norm's muscle car creations. 4 years later, Mr. Norm retired and sold his share of the dealership to his brother. He's been inducted into both the Mopar and Funny Car Halls of Fame. Today, he's back in the performance business with Performance West, selling low-volume, high-performance vehicles like this supercharged Dodge truck.
I wouldn't miss this for anything. I love every minute of it. I meet these customers out here. When they come up to me and talk to me about the old times, it just lights me up and charges my battery. I just enjoy it. There isn't anything I wouldn't do for a Mopar fan.
I've always been a fan of Tom Hoover, and why not? He's the father of the 426 Hemi. This is our pocket documentary on one of the most famous icons in Mopar history.
Tom Hoover was an engineer at Chrysler during the golden age of the auto business. In 1955, after he earned his master's degree from Penn State, he moved to the Detroit area and began working for Chrysler. He remembers growing up around cars in Pennsylvania.
Well, my father had been forever, really, from my perspective, an automobile mechanic in the old hometown here. And therefore, I was around the garage a lot. And in my formative years, it was the Chrysler garage in town. And that was an influence. When I went out to Detroit to interview, 2 things really reached me. One was that there was an A311 engine, one of the early Hemis that had been prepared in a special program for Indianapolis. Anyway, there was one of those running. Oh, brother, boy, was I impressed. As the tour continued, we passed the transmission endurance lab. And this is a permanent impression as well. There was a C300 running on transmission endurance in the transmission lab. And this thing would just go continuously. Oh man, that was the song, that was the music I wanted to hear.
Tom was bright, ambitious, and loved cars, particularly race cars. He and Wayne Erickson were the prime instigators of the famous Ram Chargers, the unofficial drag racing group of Chrysler engineers who made a name for themselves in the late 50s and early 60s.
It was a very casual, loose confederation, if you will. We began meeting at usually in the cafeteria at lunchtime. I ran in what was called C-Gas, and I won the Nationals in 1960.
By 1961, management at Chrysler had taken notice of the successes the Ram Chargers were piling up, and Tom became engineering coordinator of the racing program. He remembers a match race against Don Nicholson's 409 Chevy that proved to be one of the turning points.
The announcer asked the crowd if he'd like to see a match race between the Dodge and the Chevrolet that won the race. Nicholson agreed. We sure agreed. Well, we had a 2 out of 3 match race, and we won. And the crowd went bananas.
Although Tom worked on many racing projects, he is known today as the father of the 426 Hemi.
What we did was we tilted the head like this. So that if you look at a cross-section of the engine now, you'll see that a center line, a split between the 2 valves, doesn't go down the bore center line. Rather, it's at an angle. And this allowed the rocker to be short enough, it allowed the push rod to miss the bead on the head gasket, and it made the engine narrower enough. So I think that's the origin of all this father of the Hemi stuff that you hear. Just that one idea.
Tom Hoover, a classic engineer and father of the 426 Hemi.
When discussing the history of drag racing, one of the first names that pops into everyone's mind is Big Daddy Don Garlits. The spirit of drag racing and Don Garlits grew up together, and perhaps because of this, Don started the Museum of Drag Racing in 1976. The museum houses many cars and trophies of great drivers that have made the sport what it is today. We caught up with Don, where else but in his garage working on yet another Swamp Rat.
This is state of the art.
This is just as it's the quickest accelerating vehicle other than a rocket dragster. This out accelerates the shuttle on launch. Now the shuttle picks up after it gets going, but the quarter mile, the shuttle wouldn't beat this car. But after that, it's all over. But a rocket dragster does beat this car. They have run rocket dragsters down in the. They would run in the 3s.
That's just got to be experience of a lifetime.
It is.
Every time you go down the track. Let's go out to the museum.
Okay.
This is a museum right here. The history of drag racing.
Well, this is my favorite. Swamp Rat 1. It's never sold it. Always owned it. It was never in this nice shape. It sat outside for a number of years. In 1979, we put it back together to run, and been running it ever since.
It looks so 50s. It's got a 50s look to it.
Yeah, it is. Well, it was built in 1956. Across the aisle, we have a replica of it the way it was the first time it was actually taken to the drag strip. But this is the way it was running and the way it looked at the end. And of course, we didn't want to change it back.
Well, and that's, that's you, and that's how it all looked when it was campaigned, right?
Yeah.
So this was the one that was too ugly to be in the magazine?
This is it. This is the Flathead Dragster. We won the Lake City race. And in fact, there's some pictures of it up at Lake City in the bottom. The bottom 3 pictures are Lake City. And now they wouldn't show it in the magazine. And later, they did a scrapbook picture. You saw that in my office, and they did run it in Hot Rod then.
But even your steering mechanism is just so wild.
Yeah.
And then this one?
This is the first time out. This is actually the way Swamp Rat 1 looked the very first time I took it to the race. In fact, here's the pictures of it at the Brooksville drag strip that day. And then we redid this car later because this car then evolved into what you see over there. And so we had a frame here, and I said, well, let's just build it the way it was that day where it would run. We could take it out and run it. And I've had a lot of fun with it. And it runs about the same as it did then. Yeah.
I love your shorty springs, too.
Yeah. We thought it had to have suspension.
Got away from that later on, right?
Yeah. This is 11. This is the one I made. This was one of the first comebacks when I shaved my beard at Indy. They said I was all through over the hill. And we went up to Indianapolis and won the race.
Now here your rails are exposed versus, you know, encased.
Lightweight. Yeah, we were getting away from the heavy bodies and everything.
Now what, were those aluminum? The
bodies?
Yeah.
Yes, all,
they were.
all aluminum. And after that car came this car. Of course, we had the big sponsor from Smothers Brothers, so they wanted the body back on it. This car actually ran without the body for a while, like in this artist rendering.
Uh-huh.
And then we put the body on it for the Smothers Brothers and ran it for a year and then built this car. When it was too heavy. So we went back in 1969. This is 68. I went back in 69 to no body in the front. Of course, there's a transmission that blew up and cut my foot off.
Oh, that's the one,
That's
huh?
the piece.
True.
Then I sold this car.
Is that the blow up there?
That's the blow up.
Holy mackerel. Don.
That's this car. Fact is, you can see this little, if you look right here, you can see this little dent in the roll cage right there.
Yeah.
That's this Allen screw head right there where it hit together. And that's how I identified this car, because we fixed it and sold it. Sewed it back together, and I found it with a Chevrolet engine down in Bradenton years later and bought it from the guy.
But you knew from that dent, huh?
Knew from that dent that was the car.
God.
Like a serial number.
Don had just about everything imaginable in this museum, even a blown lawnmower he used in a television commercial.
Of course,
that's Dodge.
That's my original Roadster.
Another 413 Max Wedge. That's quite an engine too, actually.
Yeah. And this is Granatelli's FIA record Plymouth. It's had all the records with it.
Those 62s were the funniest looking body.
Aren't that it's a one-off.
Yeah, it's a one-off, all right. I think there's a reason for that.
Yeah, they didn't sell well.
Now, got to have some Willies.
Yeah, yeah. K.S. Pittman's car.
Mm-hmm.
The Olds engine. This is Swamp Rat 32. That's the first monowing car.
Uh-huh.
In the gold dragster. That never ran good, but it's got $75,000 worth of gold plating on it.
Wow. This is, you talk about jewelry.
Yeah, this is jewelry. And it's all kind of really strange design. I mean, it's the car's pieces together. See how it bolts together?
Oh, yeah.
It's got bulkheads in it. It's real heavy. Look at all the bracing, special bracing on it. Never ran real good, but it was really, the guy was an engineer, and it was all his ideas how the car should be built. And it didn't run good, but they had so much money on it, they never would piece it out and sell it.
Mm-hmm.
So a couple of years ago, he called me up. He said, I still got that car in the garage. Do you remember me? I said, I sure do.
How are you going to forget?
I said, how could I ever forget this thing?
Well, if somebody's going to get one in parts, you're probably the guy to give it to.
This is the place for it to be, right.
So this is 32?
32, yeah. I actually drove this car. This is the car I hurt my eyes in with the special parachute. Stopped 247 miles an hour, stopped in 300 feet. Took about 7 Gs. And it popped my eyes out and tore the vitreous.
Holy mackerel. And you keep getting back in these things.
Yeah.
Well, Don, I got to tell you, this has been quite an experience. You've got a heck of a place here. You've preserved it all.
Well, Dennis, I really enjoy it, you know. It's a work of love. We've been on it since 1976, my wife and I, and just last week a few little things came in that to me are important, and we add them to the collection. As you can see, it's a lifelong project.
Well, this is sort of the Smithsonian of drag racing.
Yeah, I'd
Thanks
like
a lot,
think
Don.
that.
You're my hero. It's cool. Can we take one of these out for a cruise? What do you say?
Yeah, pick one out.
I'll take this one over here. Come on.
Okay.
I have to let you in on 2 secrets. Mopar fans are the greatest fans on the planet, and Canadians are my classic car fanatics. When you put those two together, you've got an explosive combination, as I found out at the Mopar Fest in Ontario, Canada.
This week we find ourselves north of the border in New Hamburg, Ontario for Mopar Fest. Yep, you heard me right, Mopar Fest. The largest Mopar AMC only event in Canada with over 1,200 Mopar cars and trucks from both sides of the border. To fill us in on all this Mopar madness is Ted Woods.
Hi, Dennis.
Oh, Ted, it's great to be here. What a beautiful day.
We arranged this just for you.
Oh. Well, I thought it was this way always in Ontario.
A little rain yesterday and people had to get their chamois out for 10 minutes and put them away. They wouldn't need them today.
Well, now all that did was settle the dust, didn't it?
Certainly did, and things are great today. It's going to have the sunshine all day for all these car nuts that are here, and we're going to keep them busy.
Boy, and it is unbelievable. This place is, they're still streaming in. There's well over 1,000 cars.
There is well over 1,000. There's going to like to be 1,200 today. We may have to put them on the gravel. We hope not.
And they're coming from, it's not just a Canadian show, they really are coming from both sides of the border,
They
eh?
certainly are. Michigan, Indiana, Ohio, New York State. Had some here from Florida last year. I don't know if they returned, but it's just a great 2 days, just not today. That's a big part of this show. They contribute to the kids of the area. And the goal this year is $100,000. Over the last 9 years, when the show has grown to the size it is, they've given over $1,300,000.
That's just amazing.
It is. It's a great event. Mopar people are so generous, not only with their time, but with their money, with 50-50 draws. But there's some great cars here, Hemis, Slant Sixes, and everything in between, and some real enthusiastic Mopar nuts.
That's right, well, and they all are. Mopar people are probably more wed to their mark than any other.
They're really quite opinionated. Of course, most car enthusiasts are on their own particular make, but Mopar people are really friendly. They have a great time here.
Well, I got to get around. I mean, there's some just beautiful cars, and I've just seen all sorts of lovely ones. Do you have any favorites yourself?
Oh, we've got a lot of favorites. Come on with me, and I'll show you some.
All right.
I just love coming to Canadian car shows because they're such avid car nuts. And this Mopar Fest in New Hamburg, Ontario did not let me down. It was every Mopar fan's dream and then some. This show had it all, starting with this classic.
John, this has got to be one of the biggest cars here. 60 DeSoto Adventure. This is beautiful.
Yeah, it's pretty big. I think they're about 19 feet long.
Was that all? Wow.
Yeah, they're real big cars. There's lots of room, I guess, back then.
Well, you know, and the other thing, just the 50s cars and their colors were just so fantastic. What is this? Do you know what the name of it is?
It's called Antique Rose. It's a Canadian color, but it's not exactly the same shade. It's we made it more of a pinkish. It was more like a salmon color when we did it.
It is just beautiful, and I love the whole car, but I think it was this interior that just almost stopped me in my tracks. It's beautiful, and I can't believe, you must have restored it. It's just too perfect.
Yeah, the seats were taken right out of it. The whole interior was out of the car, the dash, the windows, and the frames were even sandblasted, the seats, and the materials, factory material we picked up in Washington in the States.
So you actually find NOS material?
New old stock material. It's the correct color and it's the correct cloth. We did change this to a fleshy peach color.
Yeah, well, it goes better with the flamingo.
Yeah.
I had to build a car around that flamingo, I'm sure.
Well, that's my wife's added.
What a fin, capped off by probably the most beautiful taillight I've ever seen.
Yeah, they're sweet. They're quite unique. I don't know where these guys got these ideas from.
Well, these are almost perfect too.
The lenses are new old stock. They're brand new.
Now, is this a trailer queen, or do you actually drive this thing?
I drive it.
You do, eh?
I enjoy it, driving it. And
people must love seeing this thing.
Yeah.
I mean, cruising down
the women love it. The color, the pink color, I think is.
Sucks them in, doesn't it? It's a chick magnet.
Yeah, I guess.
It's a flamingo magnet.
Yeah.
John, this thing is gorgeous. Thanks so much. What a beautiful car.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Wow.
I've seen a lot of unusual activities at car shows, but this was my first engine blow contest. To win, you buy a chance and try and guess how long it'll take an engine to blow up. They fire it up with the throttle wide open and then stand back and wait for the smoke. And what would a Mopar show be without a little bite from a Barracuda?
Blake, 65 Barracuda. Beautiful little car. These things are great.
Yep.
It doesn't look like you've done a heck of a lot to it.
There's a few things I put on for make it a driver. It's dual exhaust.
Oh yeah, I see that. Most of them were single, eh?
Yeah, yeah. I have disc brakes on it.
Yeah.
Bigger tires, modern tires, of course.
Of course. The interior looks great too. Have you had to do a lot?
No, it's original back seat, original door panels. I recovered the front seats and new carpets, and everything steel's been painted.
So yeah, that's right. These are all just steel. That makes for an easy restoration.
Oh yeah, yeah.
The dash too?
Yeah.
Ooh, yeah, boy. You don't want to be hitting that, do you?
No.
It's a what? Commando V8.
Commando V8.
Now, what was the Commando V8? Let's have a look.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, 273. That's right.
Yeah.
Now, was that a solid lifter car?
Solid lifter, 4-bell. It has a dress-up package with the valve covers and the air cleaner.
Yeah. Now this engine then grew, didn't it?
Yeah. This transformed into the 340 and 68.
It's a great little car, though. Does she run pretty nice?
Yeah, it runs great.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Well, your chrome and everything just looks fabulous. I mean, this thing's like a showroom car, and I've always loved this body style. So
Yeah.
it's just very cool.
Yeah.
You having fun today at
Oh
the
yeah,
show?
yeah, it's a blast.
You've been coming for a while?
Yeah, probably 10 years.
Oh, is that all?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, hey, man.
Local boy.
Yeah. Thanks for bringing it out. It's a great looking car.
Okay, thanks.
As I mentioned earlier, meeting Don Garlitz was a real rush. So I knew attending a Mopar event at his museum was going to be a great time. And boy, was I right.
And welcome to the 14th annual Mopars with Big Daddy Car Show, held where else but on the grounds of Big Daddy Don Garlitz's Museum of Drag Racing right here in Ocala, Florida. There's every kind of Mopar you can think of. Darts, Dusters, Demons, Cudas, Challengers, Chargers, Roadrunners, Super Bees, Furies. There's even some of Mopar's cousins like AMC and Nash. Joining me now is Tina Berlew, the chairman of the Florida Mopar Association, right?
Glad to have you here. Yeah, that's
Tina.
me.
Yeah, that's you. Now, the Florida Mopar Association is actually a collection of clubs down here, right?
It's a collection of 11 clubs across the state of Florida, yes. We
And
have AMCs and Mopars both.
Wow. Well, now this is the 14th show. Has it always been at the museum?
Always been at the museum, and about 10 years ago, one of our member clubs was asked about taking it over and making it grow, and she turned it over to the association.
Well, that's great. Now, what did it start out? How big was it when it started?
We had maybe 50 cars on the field, maybe 5 to 10 vendors max.
Wow. What do you think you'll have this year?
We'll probably have 300 cars on the field, and there's 255 vendors out in that field.
Yeah, that's a heck of a swap meet back there.
Isn't that great? You can get anything you want out there, even a Mopar.
Oh,
There's lots of Mopars for
Yeah, I
sale
did see
out
that. There are some. I was
Good
kind of
car corral.
checking a few of them out. Yeah. Well, now this is a, it's a real kind of family feel to it too.
Mopar people are family. They are always ready to help the guy. Like, I can look at this A-body and maybe this guy wants to do something like that. He'll go talk to him and say, hey, how'd you do that? Oh, I'll tell you how I did it. In fact, come on over and I'll help you do it.
That's great.
That's the way.
Now it's a show in the Southeast, but you got cars from all over.
We have cars from all over the Northeast. We have them from Canada. We have them from Texas, Oklahoma, the Carolinas, Kentucky, Tennessee, Georgia. A lot of folks from Georgia here.
Well, I think it's really cool. And like you say, we're standing here amid the A-bodies, but there's a whole alphabet soup of body types. Educate me here. These are A's. Now, if we go down here, we got what? We got B's down here.
Down here you got B's. The next 2 aisles over you got E-bodies, which is the Cuda and the Challenger.
This was a gorgeous day with plenty of Florida sunshine and a show field full of beautiful Mopars. The 14th annual Mopars with Big Daddy had some fine examples of Mopar muscle and Chrysler class. There were even some of the stranger members of the family at this reunion. Well, Dennis, if there was an award for the weirdest car here, it would have to go to you with, with this, what, 50 Nash Statesman Super. What a wild car. And you've done a lot with it, I must say.
Yeah, we've done a couple things to it.
Well,
yeah.
first of all, it looks like a bathtub.
Upside down, right. That's what they used to nickname it back in the 50s.
What, the strangest lines. I mean, well, what possessed you to buy it, but where'd you even find it?
We found it. A gentleman had an ad in the paper in Ohio. We found it, and the ad said, "This car is uglier than your wife."
A real marketer, I can tell. Absolutely.
Caught our attention.
But it is. The lines are so bizarre, and you've modified it, but the interior left bone stock. It looks like.
We like the looks of the interior,
Oh,
so we left it. They're all original. We try not to cut up anything on any of the cars that we do.
Well, the pod gauges and the brown. Did you reupholster it?
Right. It's all reupholstered in the original. Correct. Yeah.
And it's a Nash,
Tweed
so
interior.
this must fold down.
Yeah, it folds down into a big bed.
Partymobile.
Partymobile. Yes.
Well,
It was hard to get dates in this car back then.
It's probably hard to get dates in it now, actually. But under the hood, that's not stock though, I don't think.
No, we couldn't have that stock. We couldn't leave that alone.
What do you got?
We got a 1954 Dodge 241 Red Ram Hemi.
The baby Hemi?
The little baby Hemi.
Oh, isn't it cute?
Yeah.
So did you have to hack it, chop it to get it in there?
No, we picked that little Hemi because it fits right on the stock Nash mounts. We didn't have to do any modifications whatsoever.
So do you drive it much?
Oh yeah, we drive it all summer long in Medina, Ohio, and then we brought it down here for Don Garlett's show, and it'll be down here. We'll be driving along around here for about 4 or 5 months.
Well, I bet you
here.
don't meet many other ones on the highway, do you?
No, in the last 7 years since I've had it together, I've probably 3 or 4.
Man,
that's about it.
It's so cool. I love it. It's so bizarre. You're my kind of guy.
Thanks, Dennis. So are you.
You're a nut.
Somebody has to be.
Somebody's got to do it.
You have just got to see this next car. It's a 1967 Plymouth GTX with a 426 Hemi, one of 408 ever made. This car should bring a flutter to any Mopar fan's heart. And how about some small block Mopar muscle? Check out this little number.
Derek, I've always wanted one of these cars, 70 Challenger TA. I just absolutely love this. It's beautiful.
Thanks.
Did you restore it?
No, I had a friend of mine. I bought the car back in '94, and I actually had to sell it because we moved into our new house. And I was going to do it as a restoration project, but a friend of mine bought it, and he restored it in his garage. So I kept bothering him until he actually sold it back to me.
So is it restored to, you know, correct color and everything?
Yeah, FC7, the plum crazy purple, the H6XW is the white interior.
And the white interior in this just makes the whole car pop.
That's what, my wife loves that white interior.
Oh, it's beautiful. And you're gauging and all. I mean, this thing looks like brand new. Was it in rough shape when you got it?
It was actually, it's all original sheet metal. Never had any body panels replaced or nothing, but it was in good shape.
How many miles on this car?
76,000 original, 2-owner car.
Man, that's amazing.
All documented by Galen Govier. All numbers match.
Wow.
2 build sheets. I found 1 build sheet under the kick panel and 1 build sheet under the behind the back seat.
Well, you know I love this engine, the 346 pack. I mean, that's just fantastic.
Nothing like sticking your foot in them 3.2 barrels.
Oh, yeah. Well, you know, it's a screaming engine. It's a high revving engine, and these things handle on the corners better because they're just not so heavy.
Oh, yeah, it's got the power steering, power brakes.
Well, that's pretty highly optioned for one of these, really.
Yeah, it really is. And the car runs good, handles good.
Look as good underneath as?
Yeah, it looks really good. As a matter of fact, all the dust and stuff from today probably looks better underneath. Because the purple really shows.
Like I said, I've always wanted one of these. Maybe we'll have to go off later and chat about making this mine or something.
We could do that.
Beautiful car.
Thanks,
Derek. Beautiful car.
Thank you.
I bet you've never seen one quite like this. It's a 70 Dodge Dart Swinger on the outside, but has a 440 cubic inch engine with long Ram intake under the hood. The owner used manifolds off a 63 Chrysler 300 and topped them off with 2 Holley 600 carbs. Now this is one sweet swinger.
Well, I think we found one of the hotbeds of Mopar mania. These Mopar fans sure do love their cars and trucks. And a big thanks goes to Big Daddy Don Garlitz for the use of the museum grounds. So if you love Mopars and Florida sunshine, you don't want to miss the Mopars with Big Daddy car show. Just contact the fine folks at the Florida Mopar Association for registration and hotel information.
During the golden age of the automobile, Chrysler was both an engineering and design leader in Detroit. And when you look at a car like the Chrysler 300D, it's easy to see why. This car was solid, fast, and a real looker.
Well, it's mid-December and I'm in Eau Claire, Wisconsin. Whose idea was that? But I'm warm inside with John Balo. John, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Dennis.
Well, John's the owner of Muscle Car Restoration, and you do muscle car restorations.
Yes, we sure do.
Now, any one point in time, you got how many projects?
25.
25. Keeps you busy.
Yes.
Oh, I like this one. This is pretty cool.
This is a 67 Plymouth GTX convertible.
On a rotisserie.
On a rotisserie. And as you can see, we just freshly painted this car yesterday.
Did. And what color did you paint it?
This is daffodil yellow.
Daffodil yellow. An original color?
An original color.
Not one of my choices, but nice nonetheless. Now, what I did want to talk to you about was another restoration you did for Ron Johnson. And it's of this stunning 1958 Chrysler 300D. This is a beautiful car and a beautiful job.
Thank you, Dennis.
Now, how tough a restoration was it?
This restoration took us about 4 years. A lot of metal fabrication went into this car and a lot of effort.
Well, it is beautiful now, let me tell you. Now, I always love these cars because of what's under the hood. This thing was called the Banker's Hot Rod because it was so fast. It had the firepower V8 Hemi.
The 392 cubic inches, 2 4-barrel carburetors, dual exhaust, Factory rated at 380 horsepower. Really fun to drive.
Oh, could really cruise on down the road. Now, this was the last year for the Hemi, too, wasn't it?
That's correct.
A lot of glass in this car. Windshield had 11 square feet alone. But I like the interior of this. This had a lot of care taken and a lot of thought taken to the layout of it. Even the headliner is something different.
Yes, in the early years, Chrysler color keyed the inside of the convertible tops to match the headliner bows.
And the seats, you were telling me something unique about the seats?
The seats all have a metallic leather seating surface, and that's special to the early Chrysler cars, and it helped in the wear.
And you had to have those special manufactured?
We had to have those specially made, that's correct.
Well, this car doesn't have air conditioning as an option.
Nor does it have the original record player.
The record player, these came with record players occasionally?
Occasionally you could order those.
Didn't catch on though, did it?
Not hardly.
The gauges are beautiful, push button transmission, power windows. Ooh. But I always love the quarter panels. These things are huge.
They're 8 feet long, Dennis, and a lot of time and effort went into making them straight.
A lot of metal too, I imagine. A lot of chrome back here, stunning taillights.
And a huge trunk.
A 50s trunk. Size of a Honda Civic. Boy. Now I'll bet you this thing looks as good underneath as it does up top.
I'll bet it does too, Dennis.
Well, now, John, this thing's a monster. I hope that's a sturdy lift.
It's a very sturdy lift, Dennis.
Okay, well, let's check it out. Oh, it is beautiful. The finish on the frame is stunning. Now, how about the exhaust pipes? They look great.
The exhaust pipes were bent at our local muffler shop to the computer cards for this car and individually sent in and HPC coated.
Oh, and a huge cross frame back here?
Very heavy duty
and
for
these
the
are
convertible.
NOS mufflers?
NOS mufflers, and as you can see, HPC coated as well.
Now, this car's got some miles on it since the
This
restoration.
car's got 4,000 miles on it since restoration, and it still looks great.
I can see myself in the frame. I love it. And all the way back out to the straight pipes out the back.
Out the back.
Well, now, I've been kidding you about Eau Claire in winter, but in fact, it's sunny, it's dry, and it's 45 degrees out. We gotta drive this car.
Let's go drive the car.
Let's go drive the car. So is it always this nice up here in December?
Not always.
Not always. It sure does ride nice.
It's truly a luxury car with a high-performance engine.
I'll say. Now this time of year in Eau Claire, you should actually have to have a snow blade on the front of this, shouldn't you?
We should be plowing snow today, but so much for the El Nino winter.
Well, it's also a very expensive car.
It was nearly $6,000, and that's back in a time when three-bedroom homes were around $15,000. So it was very, very expensive for its time.
Well, it was fun just watching people as we're driving out here, looking and pointing and waving at the car. It does turn heads, doesn't it?
It's a beautiful raven black.
Yes,
it turns heads.
What a ride! What a ride! I tell you, John, this is one beautiful car.
Thank you very much.
Thanks so much for sharing it with us. This was great. You made my day.
The pleasure is all mine.
And Wisconsin.
In December.
The road of automotive history has many dead-end streets, and traveling those roads today makes for a fascinating look back at what didn't work. One of those dead-end streets leads to the '63 Chrysler Turbine, a car that is just as odd today as it was some 40 years ago.
Well, Frank, you do have a little bit of everything here, don't you?
Yeah, this is a 1909 white.
That's an Auburn, isn't it?
Auburn 32 V12 boat tail.
Ooh. But boy, it's the turbine that I came to see. This is something else. You know, it looks a lot like a '63 T-Bird.
Yeah, that's what they say.
Is there a reason for that?
Same man.
Oh, really? Same designer?
Engel.
Boy, but you know, the T-Bird likeness stops once you get to the back here. This has got to be one of the wildest rear ends I've ever seen.
It's different, that's for sure. I love it.
Oh, I do too. I mean, it's cut in there so deep, and then they got the turbine thing going on here, don't they?
Yes.
But those are just, I mean, that's just what, your reflectors or something? That doesn't really do anything. You don't get flames out of there or anything.
No, that's...
Well, now, Frank, how many did they build?
50 of these.
Oh, yeah? And Were they all the same color?
All the same color except one was used in a movie, and they wanted it to stand out.
But this was kind of an experiment, wasn't it?
That's right. It was an experiment to come up with some different fuels and, you know, be more economical. It didn't work out that way.
Well, and that's why, I mean, there aren't very many of these left, right?
There are 9 left. Chrysler has 3, 5 in museums, and this car.
And they crushed all the other ones, right?
They crushed them.
That is a pity, because this is really something. And the interior, again, that turbine is just, you know, running all the way through it, isn't it?
Yes, it makes for a good-looking drivetrain.
It sure does. But otherwise, I mean, it's really pretty much a normal car, isn't it?
Sure is, other than your gauges read all different, you know. You have a temperature and a big high RPM tachometer, because this thing really rolls.
I bet it does. What does it idle at? I mean, it idles at somewhere...
20,000, and redline's at 45,000.
45,000 RPM
Yeah.
redline. That's revving.
Yeah, that's going.
Well, the Thunderbird theme just continues on through this car. I mean, up front here, it still looks like a 63 T-Bird to me, but it looks like it's backwards. I mean, I see the thruster taillights of the 63 T-Bird up here. Even the turbine rims on the headlights. Pretty wild. Well, let's look at that turbine engine, because it doesn't look like any other engine I've ever seen. It looks like something Jules Verne had done in 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea.
Yeah, it sure is different.
Man.
And you don't have any pistons jumping up and down. And
No. Is it pretty smooth?
Oh, terribly smooth. It's an air machine.
Uh-huh.
Runs on hot air. These are the air intakes, and travels through. And
Well, what's the horsepower on it?
130 horse and 425 foot-pounds of torque.
Not much horse, but a lot of torque.
A lot of torque.
So what do you run on? I mean, can you run on gas?
You can run, for a short period, you could run on unleaded gas, just in an emergency. But diesel was what it was designed for #1 diesel, because it's available at most stations.
Is that what
but
you got?
I use jet fuel because I feel it's better for the engine. It's more refined. And
well, I don't know. You're saying this is one of the few remaining that are running. Actually, Jay Leno has helped you out a little bit on this, didn't he?
Oh yeah, Jay helped me purchase the engine.
So this one does run.
It does run.
What can we take it out? I mean,
Sure,
take it for a flight or whatever you call it. Well, let's close her up. Let's fire this baby up.
Out of the 9 surviving Chrysler turbine engine cars, only 3 are running. With the help of famous car guy Jay Leno, Frank Kleps was able to get a parts engine from the Chrysler Corporation and get his car running.
And you go.
I mean, so she's up?
That's it. And you pull away, needs no warm-up, no oil to check, no fluids to check, no cooling system to check. There's nothing.
Off you go.
Off you go, and that's it. That's the beauty of it. And probably the greatest heater in the wintertime. But
probably melts the ice on the street underneath it.
That's one of the great myths of this car. I mean, I wrote an article for Ward's, I think Ward's magazine had an article about the turbine, and the editor said, yeah, he put in quotes, and it melts the asphalt and burns the grass. No, it doesn't. The exhaust coming out of the back of this is cooler than a piston engine.
Really?
It's about 112, 120 degrees. That's about it. You can put your hand under there and it's fine, because these regenerators use the heat over and over until the heat is exhausted, and what goes out the back is fairly cool. But as you can see, don't forget, back in 1962, most cars, you had a choke, pull the choke out, let it warm up. This, you turn the key, and you can nail it, and you go, and that's it.
I can't believe you just fired up like that.
Yeah, you just turn the key and you go.
What starts this? I mean, you don't have a starter that cranks in, or it doesn't have a regular starter?
Yeah, it has an aircraft starter. But
well, they must have used that on something else. Did they use it on some other plane, or?
Yeah, helicopters and things.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but it's entirely different because they're not concerned with the temperature.
How many miles does this have, Frank?
63,000, I think.
Wow, that's more than I would have expected.
Yeah, well, it was used for almost 2 years.
So we're idling at 20,000. What kind of temperature are we running?
We're running about 1,400, almost 1,400 right now.
Fahrenheit?
Yeah.
1,400 degrees Fahrenheit?
Yeah.
So it's not water cooled, huh?
No, it isn't, no.
What a flight. Well, that's something else, Frank.
Great.
I got to tell you, it's the first. I've never ridden in one of these before.
Yeah.
Smooth as silk, isn't it?
It sure is, and I love it.
Oh, and I can see why.
Yeah.
You just feel like you're flying.
Yeah, it's an unbelievable feel.
Oh, it's great.
Yeah.
Well, we'll have to do this again sometime.
We'll do it.
Well, that's our look back at the legendary Mopars we've had the honor of taping over the years. Our thanks to all the people who appeared in this video for sharing their piece of Pentastar history with us. So until our next meeting, remember, it's either Mopar or no car. I'm Dennis Gage. Happy motoring.